Today I'm going to answer a question that I've been asked a lot over the last 2 weeks, but I've never been asked before that. I'm assuming it's because there's a lot of companies, especially Pro Direct, that are putting these boots on sale. So we're doing the Nemeziz 19.1 against the Adidas X 19.1. And the Nemeziz you can pick up for about £80 at the moment, and the X is only around 100. So some great deals. And a lot of people seem to have had their interest piqued in the Nemeziz because of it. So we're going to do what we always do. We're going to put them head to head. We're going to do it over our 6 categories, and we're going to decide which boot is worthy of your money. Which one is better when it comes to objective performance. I'm James, welcome to BootWizard Boot Reviews, and let's jump into our fly-through boot battle of Nemeziz 19.1 against X 19.1. Our first category, our first round, is upper. And as I always say when we're judging speed boots, there are specific speed boot characteristics that we expect these boots to have, and when it comes to your touch, that is barefoot feel. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, pretty much the best barefoot touch on the market comes from the Nemeziz 19.1. So all you're really worried about is that barefoot pingy sensation. This is probably the boot to go for. However, to get that barefoot touch, there are some sacrifices that have been made. This whole boot is made up of torsion tape, which wraps the boot and has a thick outer coating on it, and that's basically all there is to the structure. Now, it gives you a barefoot touch. It also gives you really good lockdown, but it means that the upper is pretty stiff, especially out of the box, and it needs a bit of time to break in. That's not the case with the X, however. This is pretty soft out of the box and softens in even further as you wear it with this speed mesh upper, which has a more layered construction. So you get the speed mesh, you have an internal support cage, and then you have a coating on top. So it's still very close to your foot, it still gives you a barefoot sensation, but there is a small element of padding to it, which does come a little bit from these ridges that have been added as well, which give you a little bit of extra touch and feel on the ball, while also giving a tiny bit of extra padding and structure to the boot. In terms of that little bit of extra grip, the Nemeziz has more of a sandpaper-like coating on the top, so if it is a grippy upper you're looking for, the X is probably the better option, even though neither of them are exactly control boots with grippy sensations or grippy uppers. So based purely on those speed boot characteristics, barefoot, locked in, responsive upper, the Nemeziz should take this fairly easily because I think it's better across all of those categories. However, it does lay itself down a little bit with the stiffness of the upper, and that's what brings the X right back into it. So my personal preference is the Nemeziz, but that barefoot, super barefoot touch is definitely not going to be for everyone, and that's where the X comes in, because this is a touch and feel that definitely more people are going to enjoy. So on that basis, I'm going to give it to the Nemeziz. I'm giving the win to the Nemeziz for the upper because it also gives you better lockdown than you get from the X, and I think when you put those two things together, it's a speed boot battle. The Nemeziz has to take it, so it's a 10-9 win for the Adidas Nemeziz. Okay, weight, this is a speed boot battle, makes things nice and easy. Lightest boot takes the win, and we're going to start with the Nemeziz, drop that on there. Comes in at 214 grams, it's not particularly heavy, does a great job, it's not particularly light either. It could have been a little bit lighter, considering it, although it's marketed as an agility boot, it's fundamentally a second speed boot line for Adidas, and you can see that in the similarities between these two. The X, now bear in mind, this particular X is very used. It's been quite heavily damaged, but either way, the weight will still be fairly accurate. Comes in at 196 grams, and quite simply, they're both in the same size, they're both a UK 8, and the X is lighter. So the X takes the win, 10-9. Nothing more to say about that. Next up, let's talk traction, sole plates and stud pads. And what we've got here are two that are surprisingly similar despite looking very different. So the Nemeziz has the split sole, and the main thing that affects is that the Nemeziz is a bit stiffer. It's more rigid through the heel and midfoot. Again, it's a sensation that I personally really like, but it's not going to be for everyone. All of the studs are rounded or oval studs, and they do a great job. They get good purchase in the ground, but they're not necessarily the most aggressive. These do give you better rotational movement, but they're not exactly straight line speed aggressive, which is more what you're going to get from this speed frame on the X line. So the X line is on the speed frame outsole, which has pretty much been one of Adidas's best, if not their best overall, for many years. They both have exactly the same layout in their studs, the difference being that you don't get quite as stiff a midfoot on the X, and the forefoot is a little bit more flexible. So the boot is going to suit more people. The Nemeziz, I feel like, is a very particular taste. If that's what you want, it's going to be the best boot you can buy. But the X is just going to be more friendly to more people, to more foot types. And that's without discussing the fact that you do get these triangular kind of chevron shaped studs, which all lead to a more aggressive traction, especially in a straight line, than you're going to get from the Nemeziz. Realistically, it's a speed boot competition, and it's very hard to look past what Adidas have here with this speed frame outsole, sole plate and stud pattern. It's very good. It's probably Adidas's best, and that's what we're going for. It's going to be a 10-9 win to the X. So looks is always such a hard one because it's so subjective. What I like, you might not like, and between these two, I think they're both very good looking boots. I prefer the V-cut low opening in the Nemeziz when you compare it to this claw collar design in the X, but I think overall the X is still a really nice looking boot. Maybe more people are going to like the X just from things that I've heard, and it ties into something that you probably picked up from this review, and also that a friend of mine has said, Jason, who's a writer over at Boot Hype, that the X is the people's speed boot. It's a speed boot that does everything perfectly well, and that everybody is going to be able to pick up, wear, like, and is probably going to fit them. I think it's probably the best description that I've ever heard of the X and what it does and how it is. Value for money, this is nice and simple. These are both the 0.1 models, which have bigger, older brothers in the laceless versions. These are both better than the laceless versions that are on offer, and you save yourself €60 by buying this instead of buying the laceless, and you get a better boot. It's an absolute no-brainer. But when you put them head to head, they're both €220 brand new. So there really is no comparison. No boot is particularly terrible or particularly great that it makes the value for money better. So it does mean that it's just simply a draw. It's 10-all, and you can pick up some great deals on both of these right now. Adidas boots in general are fantastic prices. So 10-all draw. Now, the Nemeziz is a little bit wider due to the sole plate. It has a little bit more room in the toe box area, and it doesn't go quite as soft and give you quite as close to the foot wrap as you're going to get from the X 19.1, which does go softer, it does wrap your foot more, but it doesn't have that same sharp touch feeling that you get from the Nemeziz. In terms of heel lockdown, you get excellent lockdown from both boots, although it is better on the X because of these two triangular pads with the grip dots on them. They do a really good job of coming in behind and gripping your heel and keeping it in place. It's a really fantastic feeling. Not to sniff at the Nemeziz, but the X is simply better there, although I would say the overall lockdown in the Nemeziz is better. So fit-wise, I think they're fairly similar, and comfort-wise, I'm going to go back to something that I've said a few times. I feel like the Nemeziz is great, but it's a very specific feel. It's a very specific boot that a lot of people are going to like, but not nearly as many as are going to enjoy the X. The X is that bit softer, it's that bit more comfortable. You could easily argue that the X is one of the most comfortable boots on the market, not just speed boots, boots. And it's going to just be a boot that is more universal to more people. This hurts. I'm gonna have to give fit and comfort to the X. Sorry, Nemeziz. Sorry. It's 10-9 in case you didn't get that over all my complaining. So before I announce the winner, I'm going to conclude like this. The X, I think, is a fantastic boot that is going to be fantastic for the majority of people. Most people are going to be comfortable in this boot, they're going to enjoy the touch and feel, and they're going to find it a very enjoyable boot to wear. The Nemeziz, on the other hand, I think personally is equally as good as the X. However, it's a very particular boot for a very particular style or a very particular player and feel. Just that extra barefoot touch, that extra stiffness through the sole plate, it just all adds up to a great boot for me. But for every 100 people, 90 are probably going to find the X better for them, and 10 are going to go crazy over the Nemeziz. I just happen to be in those 10. But when we do add the scores up and we put everything together, the X is the winner. And if you're really undecided and you're unsure about what I've said about the Nemeziz, the X is a fantastic boot to go for, and it's going to be great for most people. So let me know down in the comments what 2 boots you want to boot battle next. If you do want to support the channel and really have a say in what we do, head over to patreon.com/BootWizard, and of course remember to like this video to get more of these boot battles and get subscribed so they get sent straight to your inbox. But that's all from me here at BootWizard today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a good one. Once again, me and my Nemeziz are going to leave defeated.